Whenever you listen to a teacher, the experience is that you are learning about stuff, hopefully. Someone's teaching you about God, you are learning about God from them. You're listening to a person talking about God. For the first people to get to know Jesus, the experience went well beyond that. So for Nathaniel, for instance, at the end of John chapter 1, the Samaritan woman who you meet in John chapter 4, they both found that on their first encounter with Jesus, he was speaking with real knowledge of them. It was like he'd known them for years. The Samaritan woman had a name for this experience, had a name for the kind of person who could talk like that into your life. When Jesus tells her, he says, go call your husband and come back. I have no husband, she replied. And Jesus says to her, you're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is you have had 5 husbands and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. She says this, Sir, I can see that you are a prophet. Now what she meant was not someone who predicts the future, because Jesus hadn't just done that. What he'd done was speak about her life right now. With knowledge she knew he must have got from God. So she meant someone who is speaking from God. When you sit and you listen to him, it is like God is talking to you. Now, people like Nathaniel and the Samaritan woman, they weren't stupid. They know it's the easiest thing in the world for someone to say, thus saith the Lord, and pretend that what follows is a word from God. For them to believe that Jesus was a real prophet, there had to be evidence. And the evidence for them was simple. He knew what only God knows. And because he knows what only God knows, this is evidence that when he's speaking, you're hearing God's voice. I guess we say, bully for them. Good enough for them, but not for most of us. We've never heard him say anything like that to us. So what evidence do we have that he is a prophet? Well, fortunately for us, there were other people around in Israel at the time who were much harder to convince. And they insisted that Jesus give them a sign. And what they meant was, yes, predict the future. Tell us something that's going to happen. And if it comes true, we'll know. That'll be the evidence that we require, that you really are speaking from God. And so Jesus did. Not in the way they expected, but he did. He talked about one event that was going to happen, that everyone would know about. And it was actually his own execution, followed by 3 days later, his resurrection from the dead. That was the sign. The only sign he was willing to give was going to be his execution, and following that, his resurrection from the dead. And because it's there, it's in history, no serious historian would deny the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. That's our evidence too. Evidence that when this man speaks, you're hearing from God. He is a prophet, and much more. If you have been, thank you for listening.